Hey everyone, it's me again, and we're gonna do something a little bit different this week. A couple weeks ago, I was approached by a veteran, who will remain anonymous for these purposes. I was approached by a veteran asking if I still did military spouse related videos. If you guys have been around since like the OG days, like the very, very beginning of my channel, you know that I am a military spouse, and I have made videos in the past that talk about my experiences associated with that. And I haven't done a video like that in a really long time. And not for lack of wanting to, I just didn't really have anything to talk about when it came to being a military spouse, because not much had changed in terms of my military spouse existence since our PCS to Japan. But this veteran came forward to me and asked me to make a video about PTSD, and oh my goodness, I was like, absolutely, I would love to do that. Because even though my husband does not have PTSD, someone that I was in a relationship with in the past, who was in the Army, did have PTSD. So I've experienced that condition firsthand as a partner. And it can be a very difficult thing to sort of grapple with, both for the person suffering from PTSD and for the person trying to support someone suffering from PTSD. Let's go ahead and get right into it, because I have a lot of information to cover. And throughout this, I'm going to be including different information that this particular veteran so kindly and transparently shared with me about what worked for him, as well as any personal experiences I may have had dating someone who has suffered from this condition. So first, let's just start at the very beginning. What is PTSD? Well, PTSD stands for post-traumatic stress disorder, and it's a mental disorder that can develop after a person is exposed to a traumatic event. This can be any kind of traumatic event that threatens a person's life or physical safety. It could be sexual assault, it could be an auto accident or a traffic collision, it could be a natural disaster, or it could be warfare. Not everyone who experiences a traumatic event is going to develop PTSD, but when it does develop, it takes control over your life. It completely affects the way you do things day to day. And that's when you know that you're dealing with a mental disorder, is when it adversely impacts the way you live your life on a daily basis. Let's talk about some symptoms. How do you know that you might be suffering from PTSD? Because some of these symptoms can be really difficult to pinpoint at first. So, some of the symptoms include disturbing thoughts, feelings, or dreams related to the traumatic event. If you find yourself having nightmares, recurring nightmares about this same traumatic event that happened to you, or flashbacks are a big thing that happens in PTSD sufferers a lot of the time, where they'll be, walking around in their day-to-day life, and then something will trigger, and then they'll be back in the time of their traumatic event. Mental or physical distress related to trauma cues. So in the case of, combat veteran PTSD, the trauma-related cues could be something as simple as a loud noise that sounds like a gunshot or an explosion that could trigger that person to have a flashback or experience some kind of physiological or mental tic of sorts. But there's all kinds of trauma-related cues that can happen, and we'll talk about that in a second. Attempts to avoid trauma-related cues. Do you notice that you find yourself avoiding certain situations because they bring you back to the traumatic event? Or if you know someone who you think might be suffering from PTSD, do you notice that they don't participate in certain activities that tend to have a pattern? Like, do they avoid events where there might be fireworks or some kind of loud noise like that? That's something to take into account. Alterations in how a person thinks or feels. And I know this is such a general symptom, but you know it when you see it. You notice, like, people say that veterans who come back from wartime, they aren't the same person anymore. That's sort of what this is talking about. Changes in behavior, changes in personality. Maybe they'll be more quick to anger or more quick to startle or something like that. That could be a very, very kind of minuscule symptom that could be a sign of a bigger problem. Increased arousal. So just like, these triggers can send people into a fear response or an anger response, people can get increased arousal from, reminders or cues of their traumatic event. Some veterans, they end up being triggered by loud noises, or they end up, startling at the sound of a firework or, a firecracker going off or something like that. Others find themselves looking up footage, battle footage of the war that they were in, which, to kind of bring themselves back to that. And that can also be a symptom. So don't just look for fear or anger, look for people who seek these things out, because that can be a sign of PTSD. PTSD has been appearing in some way or another in recorded history since ancient Greece. So this has been going on for a really long time, basically. It wasn't always called PTSD though. Around World War I and World War II, it was known by different names like shell shock and combat neuroses. The name PTSD was first recognized and put into the DSM, or the Diagnostic Services Manual for Mental Disorders, during the post-Vietnam War era. Let's look at some statistics. 3.5% of United States adults have PTSD in a given year, and 9% of American adults develop it at some point in their life. It's slightly more commonly seen in women than in men, but anybody can experience PTSD. And according to RAND, which is the Research and Development Network, 20% of Iraq and Afghanistan war vets have PTSD, although there are some counselors who say that that statistic is probably a lot higher because 50% of people in the Iraq and Afghanistan war veteran category who have PTSD don't seek medical treatment. So there's all of these people who are experiencing these symptoms, but they're just not reaching out to people. So they can't be counted in the statistics. And of course, you guys have probably seen this heartbreaking statistic all around the internet for a little while now, but it's estimated that on average, 22 American veterans commit suicide every day. 22. That's 22 too many if you ask me. And while not all of those suicides are as a result of PTSD, PTSD can lead to that. So it's something that should be taken very seriously because this can be deadly. So loved ones, spouses, friends, family members, this is for you. So you think that someone you know, or you know that someone you know, is suffering from PTSD as a combat veteran or any other, person experiencing PTSD. What do you do? This can be such a loaded experience for someone who is trying to help out someone they love because, you have no idea what to do. You feel completely helpless. Don't worry. There are things you can do that can help your service member or your friend who is experiencing PTSD get through it and, seek help and, enrich their lives into something that is sort of normal. And I'm going to share a few tips and tricks. Of course, I could talk all day about all the things that you can do to help someone with PTSD, so I'm going to leave resource links in the description that are going to have a lot more detail, because if I go into every little nauseating detail about what you can do, we'd be here for days. So I'm going to read off, a few tips and tricks, just rapid fire, and if you want to learn more about how you can help, I'm going to leave a lot of resource links down in the description box below. There's a ton of information in there, so check that out once you're done watching me. So the first thing is providing social support. Now, what does that mean? Don't pressure your loved one into talking about their experiences, because for some people suffering from PTSD, talking about their traumatic event can actually make PTSD symptoms worse. So don't pressure them into talking. If they want to talk, awesome. Listen to them. Make sure that they know that you care. But, don't push them into talking about it, because some people just really, really don't want to, and that's totally okay. Do normal things with them. Now that sounds really obvious, but let me elaborate. When someone is suffering from PTSD, they feel really out of control. You know, they feel like things are constantly changing and they need stability. First and foremost, they want to feel normal, of course. You know, and of all the people who've shared their stories with me about struggling with PTSD, that was a recurring theme, is that they wanted to be normal. And so do your best to do normal things with them. Encourage them to go outside and get exercise that uses their arms and legs. You know, pursue a new hobby, do something creative. I've found a lot of people who use makeup as an outlet for anxiety or post-traumatic stress, because it's this kind of, you know, it's a way of taking your focus off of your brain running at 1,000,000 miles an hour and going back to traumatic events. The veteran who shared his story with me, was experiencing combat-related PTSD, and the person who helped him the most was his grandmother, who taught him how to knit. And it seems like such a little thing, right? Just learning how to knit. But that's a thing that takes up, you know, it made him use his hands. It took his mind off of what he was doing. It was what he was dealing with. It was this repetitive behavior that felt normal. So even if it's something as little as that, as learning how to knit, picking up a hobby, going somewhere fun, you know, doing things that are normal, doing things that normal people do. Let your loved one take the lead. Now again, that's such a broad thing. What does that mean? Basically, the person who you care about, who's suffering from PTSD, is feeling very out of control. So let them guide the process. Let them guide the situation. Let them talk about what they want to talk about when they want to talk about it. You know, let them pick activities after a while that they want to learn how to do or that they want to look into. You know, let them lead, because they're feeling very out of control right now. And the more you let them lead, the more in control they're going to feel and the better they're going to be for it. Take care of yourself. You know, when you have a loved one who's suffering from PTSD, it can be really overwhelming. You're going to hear stories that might traumatize you. And there are some people who, in the process of caring for a loved one who has PTSD, develop PTSD themselves because of all of the crazy fucked up shit they're hearing. So remember to take care of you. Remember to check in with yourself. How am I doing? Is everything cool with me? Because there's a cat behind me. Because if you can't, you know, if you don't take care of yourself, then the next thing you know, you've got 2 people suffering instead of 1, and that's never a good thing. So remember to care for you. And animals can help too. That can be a very normal thing. The process of caring for someone else. This is Skittles, by the way. Say hi, Skittles. Hi, Skittles. Be patient. And, you know, I know when you see something that's broken or when you see something that, you know, something's wrong, you want to fix it, and you want to fix it as soon as humanly possible, but be patient, because these things take time, and a lot of the time. So as helpless as you're going to feel, it's important to be patient with yourself and to be patient with your loved one who's going through this, because this is not something that's going to be fixed overnight, because it's not something that occurred overnight. It's something that has to be, you know, managed and cared for. Educate yourself about PTSD, which, hey, guess what? You've already started doing that because you're watching this video. You're educating yourself about PTSD, which is awesome. Knowing about the disease is a huge step to helping someone who's going through it. Accept and expect mixed feelings. You know, not just in the service member, but in yourself. You're going to be feeling all kinds of things. You're going to be feeling frustration, sadness, anger, helplessness. Expect that and accept it as part of the process. Be a good listener. This is so important. Not everyone who struggles with PTSD wants to talk about their experiences, but if and when they do, listen without expectations or judgments. That is like the most important thing. Do not judge somebody who has PTSD, ever. Don't judge them for how they're trying to handle it, because for someone who's suffering with PTSD, judgment can, you know, make them angry or frustrated, or even worse, you know, make them feel bad, make them feel like less of a person for the way in which they're managing this, and that can drive someone to self-harm. Make it clear that you're interested and that you care, but don't worry about giving advice. I know you know, we all want to help, right? We all want to reach out to these people who are suffering and help them fix their problems, but don't worry too much about giving advice to them, because a lot of the time, you know, these people who are going through this, they know what they need to do, and, you know, it's whether or not they have the energy to do it that becomes, you know, questionable. So don't worry too much about giving advice. Just be there, make sure they know that you care and that you are with them, you know, commit to them, say, I'm here for you. If you want to talk, great. If you don't want to talk, awesome. I'm still going to be here. Rebuild trust and safety. Someone who is dealing with PTSD may have lost their ability to trust other people, or they might be feeling like, you know, unsafe in their home environment. So express commitment to the relationship, you know, because they feel like everyone is just going to walk out on them because of what they're dealing with. So make sure they know that you care, that you're there, and that you're not going anywhere no matter what. Create routines and minimize stress at home. This goes along again with the stability thing. People suffering from PTSD want stability. They want, you know, a consistency in their life because they're feeling so out of control. So create routines, establish this daily kind of sameness, because that can seriously help when someone is dealing with post-traumatic stress and feeling very chaotic and out of control. And minimizing stress at home. So make sure that, you know, especially if this is your spouse that is dealing with this, make sure that your home is as stress-free of an environment as humanly possible. Even if that means doing little things like, you know, making sure your kids are calm when they're in the house, or, you know, having pets like a cat, like the one that's with me, to minimize stress, or, you know, doing a little bit of extra housework. If it means doing that to create a stress-free environment, then hey, that's the best thing that can help them out. Talk about the future and make plans. For some people suffering from PTSD, it feels like they will never get out of this cycle of triggering and stress and trauma. So talk about the future, make plans for the future, you know, talk about it in a positive light, because for some people suffering from PTSD, it feels like they have no future. You know, they're feeling very hopeless, they're feeling very lost. So, you know, get excited about the future, make plans, you know, talk about, like going on a vacation or buying a house, or, you know, what you want to do in the future. Talk about what they want to do in the future. You know, ask them about what they want to be when they grow up. You know, what are their wildest dreams, and look into ways to making those dreams a reality, because that is going to keep someone around. When someone knows they have something to look forward to tomorrow, they're a lot more likely to want to make it there. Keep your promises. And this seems like such a simple, like, duh kind of thing, but seriously, keep your promises. Keep your appointments. If you say you're going to, you know, be there to hang out with them, this is not the person that you want to bail on at the last minute, because, you know, this person already is losing trust in their environment. They're losing trust in themselves. They need someone who they can rely on. So when you make a promise to them, keep it by any means necessary. Emphasize their strengths, you know, talk about the things that they're awesome at. Build this person up, because right now they're feeling very, very shitty about themselves, you know. In the military especially, our military service members are trained to be self-sufficient. You know, they're trained to be able to take care of business, manage business, and there's this culture in the military where if you can't handle something, it means you're weak, or it means you're, you know, incapable somehow. And that can really be debilitating in cases of PTSD, because the entire time this person is struggling with this, they're thinking, you know, God, I should just be able to handle this. Why can't I handle this? Why am I so weak? So emphasize their strengths, even if it's just that they're particularly talented at knitting, or they're a really good bowler, or, you know, talking to them brings you a sense of peace. Let them know that, because right now they can't find their own strengths sometimes, so they're going to need help finding the good in themselves and knowing that they are strong and that they are capable people despite this condition. Encourage them to join a support group. Now again, Don't force them into it. Like, don't try and muscle them into it, but encourage them to join support groups. Support groups are happening all over the country and indeed all over the world. And it's places where people who have shared experiences when it comes to PTSD can come together and talk about it and relate to one another. And it can be super important for a person suffering from PTSD to know that they're not alone, that there are other people struggling with this and battling this same monster every single day. Is to anticipate and manage triggers. Now, this is a thing that I could go on talking about at length, but the long and the short of it is, figuring out what triggers your loved one's PTSD and how to effectively avoid those triggers. And there's all kinds of information that goes into that. So again, check the resource links in the description down below. It will let you know how to anticipate triggers, how to start talking to someone suffering from PTSD about the triggers they deal with, and how to effectively avoid said triggers, because I could talk about that all day long. Now, when you're dealing with someone who's suffering from PTSD, and you're trying to help, there can be moments where that person will get agitated, where that person will get very angry, and that can be overwhelming, and it can be really scary sometimes. So the key is to watch for signs that someone's getting angry. Look at their body language, clenched fists, furrowed brows, quickened breathing, kind of this focused appearance. You know what someone who's angry looks like. Look for that. And remember to remain calm, at least as much as you can, because that can seriously help somebody who's coming down from a flashback or an episode, or someone who might be extremely angry, is to keep your cool, because if you escalate to match them, they're just going to continue escalating and it's not going to end well. So keep calm, give them space. Give them plenty of space. When someone's angry, everybody's been angry at some point, they need space. So even if you have to leave the house, run to the grocery store or something, just give that person a little bit of space. Go into another room if you have to. But that can help calm them down when they're feeling angry or agitated. Ask how you can help. Say things like, how can I be of help to you right now? And sometimes that person will say, you can help me by, getting the fuck out of my face, or fucking off, or, whatever. A lot of the time, people who are angry, who are experiencing PTSD-related symptoms, will say things they don't mean. So even if they just tell you to fuck off, fuck off. Sometimes there will be no way that you can help someone who is, experiencing an anger episode related to PTSD, and that's okay. Sometimes the best way you can help is just by stepping back and letting them get through it on their own, because a lot of people struggling with PTSD have developed ways to sort of soothe themselves. And finally, I want to impress on this, safety first. Safety first. If you feel that your service member or your friend or loved one who's suffering from PTSD is a threat to themselves or others, call 911. Do not wait, because you don't want something to turn from a tense situation into a tragedy. I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. Take care of yourself. Remember to take care of yourself through, this caretaking process, because I know for me, it's very easy for me to put other people's needs above my own, and I'm no good to someone as a caretaker and as a friend if I'm dealing with shit myself, or if I'm not 100%. So remember to step away every now and again and take care of yourself. Check in. How am I doing? Am I okay? Is everything cool? So if you think you might be struggling with PTSD, this can be daunting. This can be, it can be something that makes you feel weak or out of control. I want you to know you are not alone, ever. If you even think you might be suffering from PTSD, you are not alone, and there are people who can help you. Reach out to your friends and family. Talk to them about your experiences if you want to, but don't feel pressured to. Get help. There are resources out there to help you. If you are a military veteran and you think you might be struggling with PTSD, the VA, I know, as soon as I say the VA, people are like, come on, man, the VA, really? But the VA can be of help. reach out to them. There are financial incentives, and there's, you know, resources that they have that can help you immensely. Anything from, you know, cash stipends to help you kind of survive day to day, or free or reduced cost medical care and counseling, or support groups. There are ways that the VA can help, but you have to advocate for yourself. You have to fight for yourself. You know, you are worth it. You are absolutely 120% worth it. So, you know, don't be afraid to reach out. And if the VA is being the unreliable VA, keep at it. Keep up the fight. Keep badgering them. Because, you know, I don't want anyone I know or anyone who watches this video to become one of those 22 veterans a day. And it's very important to me that you know, recover your quality of life, that you find your new normal, and that you surmount this, because this is something that is a struggle, for sure, 110%. There are people who struggle every single day with PTSD, but it's something that can be overcome. It's something that can be managed and dealt with, and you can still have a fantastic quality of life, and you deserve a fantastic quality of life because you've been through a lot, your feelings are completely valid, and there's help out there for you. So, you know, if you feel like you're dealing with PTSD, I'm going to leave some resource links down in the description box for you. Please seek those out. There's hotlines you can call if you need someone to talk to, you know, anything else like that. The most common treatments for PTSD are counseling and medication. More specifically, SSRIs, which is serotonin reuptake inhibitors, kind of antidepressants, if you will, can be effective, but a lot of the time, at least according to the research I've done, counseling is the most effective strategy. And in order to get counseling, you have to reach out. So don't be afraid to reach out and seek help. I know I'm with you. I've got your six. There's a bunch of other people who've got your six. So don't give up. Don't surrender. You can overcome this, and you deserve to. That's basically it. That's sort of all of the things that I've come up with for varying ways of dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder. And you know, I hope that this video is helpful and informative, and if it helps even one person to, you know, manage PTSD or to help someone who's going through PTSD, then I will count it as a successful video. So I want to take this particular opportunity to thank so much all of the people who reached out to me, who told me their stories of dealing with PTSD. You have no idea how much that information helped in the making of this video. You know, you are so brave for sharing your stories with me, and I appreciate it so very much. You know who you are. You're awesome. And I hope you guys found this video helpful, informative, or entertaining. If you did, there's a button for that. Spank that like button in the butt. You know it deserves it. And if you want to see more from me, subscribe and become a member of the faithful today. I put out new videos every Sunday. Thank you guys so much for watching and joining me today. Stay strong, you're worth it, and I'll see you in the next video. Toodles!